All right, we're back. It is COMP305. That's Game Programming 1, and it is the fall 2016 semester at Centennial 2, part 1 of our broadcast. And I know I've got a few new people. That's fine on both sections, both section 1 and section 2. As I mentioned, combined, so you can attend anytime from 9 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's both sessions run. And then 1 to 5. I will take a short break to eat as well. Usually I do that in the second half, and I have plenty of time. One thing to note is you should probably go to the YouTube channel. Like I said, if you're a new person, channel, youtube.com, and then it's Siliopoulos, and you can see the playlist here. There's several playlists that I have available to you that you can certainly look at from last week. And I will be updating the playlist weekly. Add to the playlist. I don't remove any videos, so you might see videos that are older from a couple of sessions ago. They're okay. But remember that our Unity continues to update. So we're running with Unity 5.4, and that's the reason why I'm re-recording everything over and over again. Slack. So again, if you're not on Slack, please, I would recommend again that you go on slack.com, and then you sign up to you invite yourself, or you find your team, and you can invite yourself to the team as long as you have a my.ca email address. It'll accept you, right? And if I go to Slack, and if I go to the general channel, new people joined today, right? And if I look at the number of people, the number of teams, or number of people on my team directory, I've got 41. So those people still haven't joined, right? For whatever reason. So if you haven't joined, please join Slack. It's going to make your life a lot easier because we're going to be communicating here and on eCentennial. Also on Slack today, I talked about different tool sets, and I'm going to refer to them by going to Slack to show you the links. I've shared the links on Slack, so you can always go and see the different tool sets I talked about earlier today. Let's talk about our assignment. So I'm going to go to my assignment. Again, this is week 2. Last week we did a bit of a Blender tutorial, and today we're going to be talking about assignment number 1. So assignment number 1 is due Monday, October the 3rd at midnight. Final mark, right? So why the 3rd and why midnight? Why Monday? Well, because we're meeting on Saturdays, so it doesn't make any sense for me to make it on Fridays. Like the day before we're meeting, it's due, right? And sometimes I think people need an extra day just to talk and get me to review their work and all that kind of stuff, right? After I give you this, I will be looking at your progress, right? So one thing I want to know is, what's your progress like with your assignment number 1? So please don't show up, and then expect me not to look at your stuff. I will ask you. I don't have it ready, but I will want you to start at least your assignment. This assignment I ask you for is a 2D shooter. I want you to we're going to be talking about a couple of tutorials. One that I've already given you up on, or part of it that I've given you up on. There's a PowerPoint that I put up on eCentennial. We're starting off the twin stick shooter from the book, and I'm also going to be showing you Mail Pilot starting next week. We're going to build a whole of 2D tutorials that I'm going to be showing you. 2D game, and to get used to the Unity interface and scripting. So you're going to create your own 2D arcade game, and the game must include enemies for the player to avoid or destroy. That's required. A scoring system must be included. You must use your own graphic and sound assets, not the sound assets included with the space shooter tutorial, any other tutorial I give you. All right? So if I do a tutorial and I'm giving you assets, don't use those assets. And some of the things we covered earlier today is, well, where do I get those assets? Well, one of the places you get them is the Unity Asset Store. So if I go to Unity, it'll take you to the to this location right here. So Unity Assets 3D.com, right? Store. Remember that you can certainly download. If I kind of put in 2D, my 2D shooter, or 2D, some kind of scroller or whatever. If I go 2D shooter, you can see that there are several different you can download, some of them for pay, like $20, and some of them for free, right? But what I'm going to ask you to do is you can download graphic and sound assets. Script assets are not allowed at all. 0. Not 10%, not 1% when it comes to stuff from Unity, the Unity store. And you can use the assets from here, but nothing else. Other things that have added up on Slack. One of them is Reiner's tile sets. If you want to get assets from Reiner's tile sets, it's an independent developer. He's created his own little asset library online for free. I've put the link up on Slack for you with 2D graphics. Some of them are 3/4 down. Looks like they're like a 3/4 down view, like this, right? Or 2.5D, if you will. There are some that are perfectly, they look much flatter. So if you wanted to use some assets from him, you can certainly do that. I've also put up Open Game Art, and they're all on here, by the way, all the links that I want you to look at. So if you go up on Slack, there's Open Game Art that's down here somewhere, or if I put it up. Maybe I put it up, maybe I didn't. If I don't, I'll stick them on there later on. I don't know why. Oh, here it is. And here's Audacity. Here's Open Game Art right here. So if you go to Open Game Art is another popular spot to get it's for 2D. So here's a 2D platformer assets as an example. And it's perfectly fine to download and install assets provided by these, these locations. So Open Game Art is another great place to get stuff. Get assets from other places is please credit the place you're getting it from. So please tell me you got it from Open Game Art, or you got it from the Unity Assets Store, or you got it from somewhere else, right? Or, images or sound assets are okay. Just want to say it one more time. Scripts are not allowed. All right? Scripts. And any C#, yeah, or JavaScript, yes. Oh, yes, I prefer you use your own. In fact, I will give you a bonus on assignment 1 if you make your own assets, right? Yes, when you upload everything to the Dropbox, you'll say, these are my own assets that I created, and this is what I've added in. And we're going to talk about this because your assets, you're going to have an external documentation requirement for this assignment, and you can document it in your documentation. All right, let's talk about this a little bit. Go back to my assignment. So again, I've talked about getting assets of your own. Yes.
Just a fast question. Regarding creating assets, last time you showed us a bunch of sites. Did we go through that, like just a fast few minutes here and there? No.
And when you create your own, like if you follow a tutorial online, let's say some people follow a tutorial on YouTube to create an asset or something like that, that's fine. But the thing is, if it looks like somebody else's asset because you followed the tutorial online, it's not your asset, is it? If it looks like your asset, like you followed the tutorial and picked up hints about how to do a tutorial, and now you made completely your own asset, and it looks different completely than the other person's, what they did. They just showed you how to, they give you an idea of what to do, and you followed the tutorial and got some ideas, and now you made your own. That's fine. That's where you're going to get the bonus. But if it looks identical, like if you follow a lynda.com tutorial on how to make an axe, and you hand me that axe, and you follow the tutorial, it's been made by somebody else. You just follow the tutorial, right? So please be very clear on that, right? I'm going to give you bonus points, but it's got to be your own stuff. I mean, from scratch, right? Okay. So what we need is a gameplay screen where the main game occurs. The background will scroll in one direction only. That's what the requirement is. So when we scroll the background, right, it's got to either scroll right to left, left to right, up and down, down to up, something like that. It's got to scroll in one direction. When I say scroll, I mean the background is going to appear to move, or illusion that your player is physically moving in space or on a landscape somewhere or something else. Here's what I do not want. Please do not some kind of car game, all right? Don't make car games. Car games are no, don't make a car game. Why? Because people will do this all the time. They'll make a car game and the cars will overlap in real life people, right? But they'll do that, right? Because I'm going to give you an example where the clouds overlap. And they're going to take my cloud example. People are going to do this. Clouds turn into cars because that's their game. They're going to modify my assets, and it won't look right. And you're just going to lose marks. So please don't do that. You're going to make things overlap, make them collide. And there's ways of doing that with Unity. It's not so difficult, right? But no overlapping stuff. It has to make sense when you build stuff. Which is a vehicle or character? You choose. You can use the standard WASD keys for movement or the mouse or a combination thereof. So if you really want, use a joystick of some kind, like for example, a Xbox controller. I'm okay, but you need to let me know that you're using an Xbox controller, right? Because otherwise I'm gonna try the WASD keys and I'm not gonna know what controls your game, and I'm gonna say, hey, your game doesn't move, right? I don't know what happened, right? So please do that. Your control of the enemies, and I said simple AI. Even when I say AI, it's really not even AI. It's really random generation of enemies that kind of appear on your screen. And this is the problem again with car games. Car games, when you imagine if I randomly spawn my enemies like cars, and they spawn on top of each other. But asteroids, I guess that's kind of okay, right? If you're going to do something, please don't make an asteroids game. That's not the game, all right? If you make an asteroid, if you see an asteroid tutorial and say, Tom, I found this asteroid tutorial with all the script and the images and da-da-da. The answer is no, you're not. This is not your game. It's somebody else's game you're handing in. This is for you to learn Unity, not for you hand in somebody else's code. I could find, I'm very good, I said this in the first class as well, strong people. I'm able to find people who else's work. Last semester, I found 11 people that tried to cheat, 11, right? It's not a small number. People do it all the time for whatever reason. Think it's like it's okay to use somebody else's code. It's not. And if you have a question around it, check with me. Say, Tom, is it okay? I know it's weird, but there's a little code that does a really special. Can I use it? Chances are say no, because I want you to do your own thing. But if it's really minor and if it adds a little bit of an effect or whatever, or if we've covered it in class, if it's my code that I've covered in class with you, chances are it's okay, right? I said, okay, I'll tell you it's okay to use it, right? But if I haven't told you about it, if it's not my code, and if it's not your code and you're somebody else's code, and you have a question, chances are it's not okay. Do that. All right, random placement of items to collect and/or obstacles to pass through or over. That means that, I don't know, it's something else other than killing enemies, all right? So, or avoiding enemies. Maybe you're gonna pick up a coin or a gas or life or whatever, hearts. Game you're making, right? It's got to make sense, eh? Don't pick up hearts in space. That doesn't make any sense. Maybe you're going to pick up some kind of other things, components in space, or you're going to pick up asteroids in space, or maybe you're going to fly over some kind of stars in space to give you energy. It can't be something that doesn't make sense. Like, don't have, like, you know, women that are tied up in space, you know, whatever. I've seen all kinds of stuff. And please don't show me like cars underwater, right? Cars underwater moving. You know, this, someone said SpongeBob SquarePants, cars underwater. But unless there's something like that, like unless it's heavily themed to the game you're making, please don't give it to me. It doesn't make sense. Don't add it in. Every year I get some kind of cockamamie space, or eagle, underwater, or something like that. If it doesn't make sense, I'm going to tell you, you're going to lose marks, right? Same thing with these, this random placement of items. Make it real, relevant to what you're doing. Like if gas cans for that doesn't overlap, right? And I don't want you to make a car game, so just ignore what I just said. But if you were going to make a car game and if it was allowed, then gas cans make sense, right? Because you're going to pick up the gas cans to give you more points, right? Don't make it something weird. Like, I don't know, rubies. I'm picking up rubies with my car. Rubies make no sense, right? Unless up game. I don't know. Yeah, we got to think about it anyway. Scoring system, you're going to have collisions with your other objects, right? So when the objects collide with you, chances are you're going to lose health, right? Or something's going to happen to your vehicle. Your vehicle is going to get damaged, or your player is going to lose health, or whatever. Scoring. The other thing is, if you somehow destroy other ships with your bullets, if you decide to add bullets, it's not required in this game. If you pick up additional pickups, like things that to give you collectibles or whatever, points. So points and health are really, really important. I want you to display those somewhere on your UI for the game. Right? There's got to be a point system or some kind of scoring system. For collisions with enemies and collecting points. Okay, those are required. So sound effects are required. One thing that's not required for this game is animation, kind of frame-based animation at this point, or any other animation. It's just moving stuff around with the Unity editor, and how you have scoring, you have health. Play a very simple game. If you can do that, and it's your own code with your own assets, primarily. If you're a gaming person, who's a gaming student? Other than, I know I got a couple. If you're a gaming student, you should really think about trying to make your own assets here. What I mean by that is use Blender, or maybe you're going to use something like Photoshop or some of your favorite asset creation tool. Make your own assets. It's worthwhile to learn how to do so, right? I'm going to give you a bonus. I'm going to pay you for it. And even if you're not a gaming student, you should try if you can. But if you're going to do that, start today. Don't wait until the last minute to make your assets. Asset creation takes a long time. Make a simple thing, and it's because details, right? And building a geometry with something like, or a mesh with Blender or Maya or something else, or even on a 2D surface, drawing your stuff takes a little bit of time, and then you have to have enough assets to make sense for your game. It takes a lot of time. So please start early if you're going to do that. Okay, internal documentation, that's the game. So the game is a very simple shooter. One thing you won't have is a beginning screen or an end screen. There won't be an instruction screen. None of those things exist in this particular shooter. Additional menus and screens and stuff like that stop you from doing that. In fact, it'll make your game nicer. You don't have to do it though. All you need is something like start, or press space, any key to start. Okay, now I'm starting the game. Okay, good. I play the game. Okay, I lost all my life. Now I'm in the game over. A game over sound like whatever. Over, press any key to restart. That's it. One scene does it all. One scene to rule them all, right? And that's it. It's going to be, there's only one level. On that, this is the first of the series of assignments that I'm going to give you, right? You're going to get 3. You're going to get a 2D shooter. I mentioned this last week. You're going to get a 2D platformer with physics, right? And you're going to get first-person perspective that you're going to build in the second half of the semester, right? One of these games, and by the way, it also increases in difficulty. So if I say the 2D, this one here is kind of low to kind of easy level, kind of your platformer, because you have physics inside there, right? Maybe for some people it'll be even intermediate to advanced, depending on how you do it, because we're also going to be using line casting. Maybe even just for enemies and so on. And this is the second assignment we're going to get, which is going to be in the second half. It's 3D. So now that extra, I always say this, the extra coordinate just makes it that much more challenging, right? Worrying about that, and collisions are more challenging. Making assets are more challenging because now your assets are in 3D. Your assets aren't just 2D. Worrying about lighting, you're worrying about texturing, you're worrying about materials. There's a lot more to worry about with 3D, and that's why I'm only giving you one assignment in the second half that's 3D. These assignments, and you and 2 of your best friends here in the class, right? Any section, because the sections are combined. You're going to combine with them to build your final project in a semester, right? It's going to be worth 30% of your final grade, cut over milestones. There'll be like 3 different milestones, 3 weeks build with 2 teammates, and you're going to build a menu, an instruction screen, 3 levels, and a game over scene. Combine with somebody. If you're a lone wolf, it won't work here. All right, there's a lot of work to be done. You're going to have other courses. There's no exam in this course, right? So I'm telling you in advance, please partner early, partner now, right? That way that if you do that and you start thinking about your stuff, easier, sorry, as you get towards the project, okay? On that, you're going to have a final presentation for those people who weren't here last week. I'm just reiterating this from last week. You're going to do in class. You and your team members are going to come up and display and kind of show off your game, talk about how you built it, what inspired you to build it, all that kind of stuff. The controls, how you score, what's the goal of the levels, each level, all that kind of stuff. You're going to do a short presentation. We ran out of time. We do have 4 hours for both presentations. If we don't have time to do them during those time slots, want you to record things live on YouTube, right? So we're gonna, that as another option, as a backup, I'm gonna get you to do your final presentation. So I'm just laying out what you need to do, all your assignments. So again, from an assignment perspective, final project and a presentation. Labs, I haven't done any yet, but I'm gonna do a lab for next week. Probably we're gonna cover how to do an external document with Markdown, because we're gonna try and do external documentation on GitHub, because we're going to be using GitHub. For those people who don't know how to use GitHub, I'm going to start with GitHub today, and I'm going to eventually do a lab. It's going to happen as well. So there's going to be a lab for GitHub. If you have GitHub, fantastic, you get some free marks. If you don't have GitHub, this will be a chance for you to get it. All right. So that's the stuff that's happening. Questions so far around assignment number 1. So internal documentation. There's going to be a section here on internal documentation. So section 2 or part 2 of the assignment. Internal documentation means I want your name and the date you made this thing, the program description, the revision history, all that stuff. Probably your student ID would be nice too. This and every one of your C# scripts, right? To basically say this is you, right? I want you to highlight or include comments for your headers, for your classes and methods, right? Inside your code. I don't want you just to, just to code away. And you can certainly talk about your UI, right? Special thing, but I don't want you to over-comment. I don't want you to use comments to hide bad code. I don't want you to say, well, I know this code, I'm trying to do this and this and this, and you have this whole pile of comments because you don't know how to make something work. Right? Fix your code. Don't use comments to hide your code. Okay, that would be very bad. You're going to make, for this project, a logo. Don't make it crazy, okay? This is not a logo like you're a graphic designer logo, all right? This is a logo that might be your first initial last name with a triangle, all right? I'm talking about a very simple logo, your signet ring that basically tells me who you are. Please don't steal somebody else's logo like Apple and like put instead of some kind of a bite, don't put a heart on it. It's kind of weird. If you're going to make something, because when you combine with other people in your group, right? Example, let's say Eddie and Wendell, you work together, right? You're going to have, each of you are going to have a logo. Project, I'm going to see all the logos of people working, just like we would have in a real game. We have these teams work together to combine and make your project, right? So please do that. It should include a table of contents, a version history, a detailed game description. What's your game about? Inspiration, that kind of stuff. Controller game, is it WASD? Is it joystick? Is it something else? How do you control your game? Pause for a second. Interface sketch. People don't know what this is. It's a wireframe, people. Who does not know what wireframes are? Please put up your hand, because I want to help you. It's good. Imagine, and this is the simplest form. I kind of did it backwards last time in the morning, so actually, please forgive me. But at a cafe, all right? I think it's a better scenario, right? We're at a cafe. Wendell and I were having some coffee, right? And I'm sketching out a game to him, and I say, "Hey, look, I'm gonna bring up Sketchpad Pro. I'm gonna talk about this. So let's say I bring up my little sketchpad, my sketchbook, right? And I start sketching out this idea that I have for a game. I say, you know what? I have my my game, right? Let's use a black color. There we go. I'm going to have my game. So here's the screen, let's say, right? And you start drawing this out on a napkin. And I have my my ship here. Here's my player ship. And you know what? I've got my enemies here. Is they're going this way, right? This is what's happening. My enemies are going this way. And my player ship can only go up and down. That's what my player ship can do. See where I'm going, right? I'm describing by wireframing, by outlining what it's going to do in a very simple diagram. And of course, I'm going to have to add in things like this is the enemy with some labels and so on. By the way, forgive me how I'm doing it right now because I'm using a mouse to draw, which is always a bad thing, right? And I'm using a felt pen as opposed to some kind of basic pencil or something else, right? So with me with what I'm doing here, I'll use a smaller pencil. For example, I want to add some text. So my text is going to be, you know, player. You can do this. I'm using this thing called Sketchbook Pro. You know, let's move it around a little bit here. I'll make it a little bigger and move it around. Layer, and then maybe here's my enemy up here. So I'll get another one. Enemy. Right? You see I'm going. So I'm making a little wireframe. I'm going to go more into this next week. So bear with me while I do this. Here's my enemy. And you know what? Maybe they're shooting bullets or whatever. And I keep this. I'm working a little wireframe about how my game works and describing it with a little bit of text. Maybe there'll be some description down here of what I'm doing. But that's what a sketch is. I'm not going to save this. There's different tools for this sketching, and I put them up on Slack. For example, you can certainly use this thing called mockups. Mockups is a free online sketch, which you can certainly use for free. And you know, example mockups. Just get rid of all this. Is you can drag simple shapes in here. Like, for example, this rectangle. So I want to grab this rectangle and put it in. So, right, there we go. It's pretty simple. You can try it yourself if you want. So here's my screen. And maybe I want to put another rectangle in here for my player. I mean, it's really as simple as this at the beginning. I mean, obviously, you want better representations of stuff. You can certainly draw them out. Maybe I want to use some icons. Like maybe this is my player. Okay. Something else, and I can make it larger or smaller. There we go. Player, ship, and then my enemy. Here's my enemies. There we go. Whatever, and the same idea. But you can do it here with wireframes. Make it as professional as you want. The more detail you put into your wireframe, really, the better it is for you. Why? Because if you give me some detail here, and this is included in all your external documents, the reason why you do this is because you pre-plan what you're doing. Check out the stuff that your game is going to look like in a very simple way, just so that way before you do any coding or any asset gathering or anything like that, you have an idea of what you're doing. What if you're like, Tom, I don't know where to begin. I want to make a 2D game, but I don't know what to do. You can always search it up online. If I say something like 2D platformer, you know, or 2D shooter is probably what we want to do. 2D shooter example, properly. There we go. There are some 2D shooter examples up here. If you want to go and take a look at some of these things, shooting game example in Unity, right? Like it even gives you stuff that that gives you an idea. You can also look at the classics, like for example, Defender or video game. That's a classic shooter, right? And 1980, if you want to look at that, screenshots to see how it looks. So here's Defender. This is what it looked like back in the 80s. I want to think if I can get it actually bigger. There it is. Here, and it gives you, this is the beginning screen. And then what you do is you have these enemies that come by. It's very simple. And the ship can go up and down and shoot these enemies. Defender, right? Tank. You know, different kinds of enemies that are here. And this is, you can move to different platforms. Like really simple. This is like back in the 80s. So, it's pretty simple, right? You want to keep it simple too. You want to have some kind of inspiration for a game. You don't want just sometimes it's not enough to kind of come up with it on your own, because you might miss something, or maybe you want a mechanic, some way of your game working. Take a look at the classic shooter games out there from the 80s. Believe it or not, those 80s games, all the games that we play now. All right. So take a look at those games. I know it's kind of crazy, but if you do a little bit of research, there's lots of stuff out there to give you some inspiration. So I spent a lot of time on Interface Sketch because people always give me screenshots. Is not a sketch. A sketch is one part of your process, your game out, right? So sketch out your game. What is it going to look like? And some of you have done this with me before because you've had me as a professor before in different in 3D, right? It's the same idea. Think about in 3D. What is it going to look like? Or in 2D in this particular case. Are your screenshots. So it says, I want 3 screenshots for your game. 1 for your start state, 1 for your gameplay state, and 1 for your game end state. Notice I didn't say screens because I only want one scene right now in Unity, just one. So the game is waiting for you to press the a key for you to go. Talking about here. So at least 3 screenshots, right? So when your game is done, your character's avatar, right? Describe your enemy. What does the enemy look like? Give me a picture of the enemy if you can, like an image. How do you score for your sound and multimedia index? Like, show me a list of sound assets or multimedia assets. Where did you get those assets from? Them yourself, right? And again, I'm going to show you the online tool. If I go to Slack, you can see that on Slack there's something I put on, a link for BFXR. That if you want to make your own sounds, like for example your explosions, and again you won't be able to hear it because I've got my earplugs plugged in. Right? Let me show you maybe for a second. I apologize. So power-ups, explosions, a jump, right? You can make all those, and they're random. I'm going to plug in again. So you can get this online. I put it up on Slack. These things, you can export it as a WAV or an MP3 file. Those custom sounds, and hey, that's effectively you're making your own. This is part of your assets. You're making your own assets here, as long as they're unique. Someone, if you can make your own, that's the thing for me. And it's 2 seconds. Like literally, it didn't take much time at all. Right? Use your own. Make your game your own, which is possible. For music and for other assets, other sounds, I highly recommend doing something like, getting something like Audacity. Put it on Slack again. Audacity is the free sound editor. Make sounds, and I put some other links up here as well, mock-ups and so on. GIMP for graphic manipulation, we talked about last week. For sound, you can download. It's a free download it's cross-platform, Linux, Mac, and Windows. And what it allows you to do, if I go to Audacity, it allows you to record things like your own voice or other sounds and make your own custom sounds here as well. Like if I click on record and I say level up, and if I play it, let me see if it works. It does, but you probably won't hear. You probably won't be able to hear it. Yeah, you can't hear it because of the way things work. But what you can do is you can modify the waveform. You can modify the waveform out and modify it by going to Effect, Amplify, Echo, Fade in, Fade out. Different kinds of things. Add a phaser effect, reverb, all kinds of stuff in there. Change the way it sounds. I can slow it up and speed and slow it down and speed it up and so on. So it sounds like I'm coming in a lower pitch or whatever. Lots of stuff that you can do. Amplify to make it louder. I highly recommend something like an Audacity to play around with. Making music is a little bit more difficult. You have to have some kind of music software and it takes a lot of work. I'm not going to say it can't be done. There's things like lots of music creation software out there, like GarageBand for if you're a Mac person. As an example, there's lots of other beat generators to make your own type of music. Even though it's a standard beat generator, it's your own music. You don't have to use music that comes from another game. And you can also go to Open Game Art, and they have music that you can use royalty free, right? As long as you give them credit that they did it, you can go grab it from there as well. So again, you have plenty of places to get assets for your game, and that's why I want you to put together a sound and multimedia asset, a graph of where everything comes from. So say like this asset, here's what it looks like, this is where it comes from. Like that kind of stuff, and a little chart documentation. All right. Of course, share your files on GitHub. And for those people who haven't signed up for GitHub because you weren't here last class, sign up for GitHub. So where is that? You go to github.com, and as an example, this is my view when I'm logged in. When you've never signed up for GitHub, if I'm going to go incognito window here, it would look like this. You sign up for GitHub with the free download, free sign up, I mean. Also, what GitHub does is it gives you it's a service, a cloud service that allows us to place our files up into the cloud, like Dropbox or Google Drive. because it's not files and folders you're putting up. You're pulling up your project files. You create a local repository, a place where you put your files, a snapshot of all your files locally. And then part of your creation process is, as you develop, you push things to the remote repo. We're going to do that today. So please sign up for GitHub and get your account. Also, some people are concerned about repositories because they're public. Anyone can see them for free. But you can always go to, and I'll put this up on Slack, download the student pack for GitHub, the education pack, which is right here. And what this gives you, if you click get your pack, you have to prove that you're a student. You don't need DreamSpark. Gives you is things like $50 in platform credit for something like DigitalOcean, if you want to create a VM. Unlimited private repositories from GitHub, right, while you're a student, which is pretty awesome, right? It's like Microsoft Azure. Namecheap, your own DNS, your domain name for a year for free, right? As well as an SSL certificate. Access to Stripe for a payment gateway. And other things in here, as well as training like Udacity. And even another competitive engine, which you already download for free, right? But lots of stuff here on the student pack. I fully encourage you to sign up for your GitHub student pack. You can make free repositories, and then for me to access your repositories, you'd include me as a collaborator. And then once you include me as a collaborator, I'm the only one that can look at your stuff. I'm not requiring this of you, but if you want to keep your stuff private, this is the way you would do it. Okay? So with the on GitHub, remember, of your submission is GitHub, which is worth 4 points out of 41. That means that's 10% of your submission just to GitHub. Just put it up to GitHub. In this iteration of our course, I'm also going to ask you to put up, there's some bonus opportunities. When you submit your stuff, external document, you can do it this way with an external Word or PDF. Please do not give me open document format, all right? Or Google documents or something like that. It has to be a Word or PDF document, all right? And when you give me this, alternatively, you could use a README file on GitHub to do this. Now, we're going to be talking about Markdown and how to create a README file on GitHub. It's all inclusive, if you will. So example, if I was to create a repository on GitHub, and I'm going to go on GitHub for a second. Here it is. Files for this course on GitHub, because I'm going to share all my files. You can go to centennialcollege.com. So github.com/Centennial College. That's the Git repository, the general repository. Today I did this one, COMP305, F2016, lesson 2A. We're going to do 2B with you guys. Each GitHub repository also has a space for a README file, and you can add a README documentation here, as opposed to give me a separate document. So I will allow that, right? And we'll be talking about Markdown, how to describe a file through Markdown, and everything else over the coming weeks. So GitHub. So it's required. Please don't skim around it. Don't try and get around and say, Tom, I can't get GitHub. Please don't say those things to me. You have 2 weeks to get your GitHub going, right? Anyone can get access to GitHub. It's a free sign-up requirement. The thing is, after you put your stuff on GitHub, I only want your WebGL build for Unity up on eCentennial. So I don't want all your files and zip and up on eCentennial, just a WebGL build. But that means your WebGL build has to work, right? If you can't build, you haven't downloaded WebGL as a module for your Unity. So Unity is the requirement, Unity 5.4. And the way, of course, to do that, I talked about requirements last week. If I went to unity3d.com and if I said get Unity now, I'm going to choose free. And as I download, here's my download the installer. The installer itself is going to ask you to do a couple things. It's going to say, hey, what do you want to download? What do you want to include in Unity? And my answer is, all right, it's 30 gigs, right, if you download everything. But this way, you're not missing anything. And then you and I have the same setup, all right? Should have WebGL. I found one that did not today, right? If it doesn't, we can always update them. It's not a big deal, right? is required for both assignments and the test that we're going to have. We're going to have a midterm test, that's going to happen on the 7th week, right? So please remember that you need to install things or deploy to WebGL build, right? Today too. So that's the second thing. So the first thing is a GitHub link. Second thing is WebGL on eCentennial. And the third thing is a link to your complete project files on document on eCentennial. Now this is only worth 10%, but it's going to start you going. The next one is going to be worth 15, and the one after that is going to be worth 20. Increasing levels of difficulty for each one of these things. Why the platformer is worth 15% is because it includes physics, 2D physics, but physics nevertheless. Whereas this whatsoever, right? This is just 2D, right? Like a 2D top-down kind of side scroller or whatever. Increase in level of difficulty, and they're going to increase in point value, these assignments, right? Your midterm test, I don't think is going to be higher than 15%, just letting you know. So it won't be that big. Project is going to be with a big part of it, 30% for your final project, broken off into 3 milestones, so 3 10% milestones, right? And then an additional 10% for presentation, like your final presentation. Again, I highly urge you, do not be a lone wolf on this one. Somebody else, all right? Try working with one other person or 2 other people at the very minimum, because you need the horsepower to get your final project done. This one here, this assignment, is only a single person. It's a solo assignment, right? So there's 3 solo assignments on the second half of semester, okay? Yeah, any questions around this? You good? Anyone else? I'm going to be putting up this rubric later on up online. It's not there right now, but basically it just breaks down how many points are for UI, user interface, functionality for your game, external documentation, and version control. So for a total of 41 marks. So you can see where your marks are going, right? Again, it doesn't make any sense for you not to do version control. Test out your game, right? Or look at your game. So please, if things are missing, it's just going to mean you're going to lose marks. So your first game or your first assignment is a 2D shooter. So why these games? Why these 3 games that I'm giving you? Because when you combine, let's say for example, you know, we combine. I'm his partner, and I want to combine with him to make a 3D game because we're gaming students. I'm just saying. And, you know what? I want to make a 3D game. It's the most challenging, probably the most rewarding too. In terms of things, I want to make a 3D landscape and a mountain, and my game is going to be it's a treasure hunt, right? And there's going to be, so we have to find the treasure. That's part of I'm making this up, by the way, and a bit of a maze that I have to get into in level 2, right? As an example, and there's going to be enemies that are going to be coming at me. And the enemies are, you know, different things. I'm going to have flying enemies in the second level, and the first level it might be, I don't know, some kind of traps that I have to avoid, and the third level there might be something else, a big boss dragon or something that comes after me. Build this thing out. Well, probably what's going to happen is that we're going to make the 3D first-person perspective game, whatever you want to call it, that we're going to make in the second half. I'm probably going to want to think about level in a 3D game but it's going to be in the same game world as my partner. So that way, when we finish off our final project, right, I have 2 levels done. Those 2, you know what? I'm going to make a 2D game, and you're going to make a 3D game, and Eddie's going to make a 2D platformer, and somehow we think we can combine all 3 to make a final game. No, right? That means like no work has been done. I just take my first assignment, second assignment, third assignment, combine them into the last assignment. No. Type of game. So either it's a 2D game, 2D platformer, 2D side scroller. And by the way, got lots of 2D side scrollers last year. Was like I got 2D side scrollers for days because it was easier to make. And the final one would be a 3D first-person perspective game. Someone who wants challenge, plan to make your 3D first-person perspective game now. Don't wait to gather assets and create stuff, you know, a semester. There's just no time. This stuff, right? or even gathering assets. Even if you don't make your own assets, gathering assets alone, it takes a long time to make. Thinking about that now. If you're someone who doesn't want to challenge them that much, but you want to learn everything, but maybe you want to make a platform. You've always wanted to make a platformer in your whole life. I don't know, a 2D platformer. Maybe that's the game that you're going to make in the second half, right? So you start off in assignment 2. You and your partner, you make one level with the same assets as him, and he makes another level. Hey, guess what? All you need is one more level for the final game. And then, but even though you're not partnering together in assignment 2, and you have the same methodology of doing stuff, not the same code, just the same methodology, but I'm marking you separately. In the final project, you have 2 levels out of 3. Now you have to make your final level with your boss monster, let's say, or whatever, and your menu screen, your instruction screen, your game over screen, and you're done, right? 3 weeks, you have to do all that alone. Okay, I'm not going to sit there and go, okay, hands off. I'll see you in 3 weeks, right? I'm going to check with you every week. There's going to be another piece of the assignment that's due, and I'm going to expect you to, be in, hand it in. I'm going to mark it, an idea of how you're doing, and maybe you have to realign your, what you're doing, because what happens, maybe you're going to write yourself into a corner or something like that. That would be very bad. Next week, even though part of this is only one part, I'm not going to leave you alone. Like I said, so please bring in what you have done for your assignment number 1, even though it's due in 2 weeks from now. Next week on Saturday, I'm going to check you, right? So please bring it in. I'm going to count it as a lab, which just means like check mark, he worked on it or she worked on it. If anything done next week, you get an X, which means you lose 2%. All right, so please don't do that. Next week, I want to check your work. I'm going to go quickly around, and you're going to get a check mark or an X, a 2% or a 0, right, for starting off your game. And what do I mean by that? I mean that you have your external document started, right? All right. Your external document started. You should have some kind of wireframes, because if you're starting your game, you should have your process. Your external document isn't for you to do at the last minute. Tom asked me to do an external document, so I've kind of put them together because he's asked me to do it. Wireframes, that's part of your process to envision what you're going to build. So at least I want to look at that. So in your external document, I'm going to look at wireframes next week. Hey, what are your assets? Do you have any of your assets, so far? Have you thought about your concept? If your concept isn't there by next week, your concept, you've got your wireframes, 2%. That's all I'm asking you. Nothing has to work next week. Just start. Start thinking about stuff, planning. The more you get done, the better. So that way, you're not left in a lurch for the final week, because it takes time for this stuff. Games are the most difficult applications to build. Anything else, right? More difficult than database access, more difficult than applications. Why? Because they're very complex. And one thing depends on another thing for it to work, right? So especially in this little environment, prototype, we're not really fully fleshing out a game, because games are very challenging. So please, I'm going to put a reminder up on Slack and on eCentennial, the first concept of your game next week, for a check mark. All right? If you don't get it, 0. All right? A little bit pedantic. And some people are like, but why? I got 2 weeks. No. If I give you 2 weeks, the more time I give you, you're going to hang yourself with it, and you won't get it done. Right? And not because I don't think you're very good at getting it done, but because we're all, for the most part, procrastinators. Right? We wait till the last minute. And not just that, prioritizers. I'm going to prioritize my one assignment because my professor's really pushing this and it's due next week. Well, meanwhile, Tom's giving us 2 weeks, so I'm not going to do that assignment until 2 weeks. Right? Please don't do that. Please start right away. It's the right thing to do. Behind. Okay, that's like an hour right there. I just talked about your assignment. Why? Because it's so important. If I don't talk about this stuff and you don't know the requirements, people are going to come back and they're going to give me things that I didn't ask for, like card games. No card games. And the other thing I don't want is, don't use my assets. I'll say it again. All right? If you use my assets, I'm not going to accept your game. All right? So I don't want that. And assets, don't give me back my voice. All right? Don't give me back my scrolling background or anything like that. Make your own, find your own. This is your assignment, not mine. Any questions around this? Okay, I'm going to save this recording. This is just for assignment number 1, and then we'll go into the next piece. We'll take a short break, 10 minutes, and we'll come back and we'll do the next piece. All right?